So we're back, and I want to explain the next step to our project. You need some type of stand or a hoop. I'm using the Morgan lap stand, 10-7. Okay, you would need to acquire one of those. You will need a punch needle, and I'm using fine on an Oxford. Okay, so this is a number 10 fine. I'm doing 10 because the pile height is 1/4 inch. Actually, there's more yarn here. If you would like to use a higher pile, you can. But I am just basically doing a 1/4 inch pile. You need a large enough shaft here to accommodate the thickness of the yarn. So that's why we went with an Oxford. All right. So that's in here. We've chosen 3 colors, which will be in the kit. Okay, because the kit doesn't include these, because different customers have different ones. So you will get the yarn, your rug warp, all right? And so in this one, I've got basically a dark, medium, and a light, if you want to think about it. When I started this, it just reminded me of lavender in the fields. And so that's kind of what has spurred on this inspiration of the colors. So the first thing we're going to do is mount this to your actual hoop. And to do that, on a Morgan frame, you would unloosen, take the top ring off, take in your material. This is where it gets confusing. Your drawing needs to be facing up. Don't turn it over, because then you're not going to see it. All right, so your drawing is facing up. The other important thing is where these corners are, they can't be hanging off the curve, because you can't punch this part when it's not. It actually needs to be centered in here, and the only way to do it is feel. If you are using a stand, be careful of your actual legs, and I'm trying to orient squares around that too. All right, so I can feel there's not one here, 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 or here, so that's good. Then I'm going to take my hoop, place it on top. The Morgan frames had that groove in there, which is actually going to secure it really, really well. So trying to put this on and make sure that none of the fabric squeezes out. Now, I'm not trying to tighten it. All I'm trying to do is feel it. So right now this is real close. This one's not. I've got plenty of room here. A lot of room here. So what I may do is because it's loose right now, it'll still slide in there. I can actually move this a little bit to manipulate it away from the corner. So what I've done is I tried to center some of it. You also want to make sure that when you put it in the hoop, that the grains of the fabric are running not wavy. You don't want one pulled like this where you can see that the line is not doing that. You kind of want it as straight as possible. So what I'm doing is just pulling it down. I think I'm doing pretty good. And then as you're going to tighten it as you go. If you have a mighty winder, these work really great on that. You're trying to close this gap. Once this is on here, you're going to leave it. So I'm still pulling, trying to pull out the stretch, make sure it's tight. I want it tight like a drum. Take the time to do this correctly so you don't have to redo it again. Notice I'm pulling just a little bit just to make sure. That crease that was in the fabric is actually just about out of it now. I mean, it's pretty tight, springy like a trampoline. I'm pretty much, well, I can't get any closer than that. If I had a mighty winder, I would try, but I think this is pretty good. It's pretty tight. So the drawing is up. This will be the actual back side of it. This is another reason that the markers don't matter, because it's the back. You're using this as just a template right now. So the first color I'm going to do is actually going to be the brown part that's in the wave right here, this part. So with your needle here and with your yarn, you would like to find the center, okay? I find it much easier to do that. So I know that's the center pull right here, and I actually had some yarn that was wrapped around. To keep it coming out this way is better, all right? So there's my center. I'm not cutting it. All I want is the very end of it, okay? So this is the most important part when you're going through threading the needle. Don't forget the eye hook, okay? Now, some people will thread it backwards, or you need to go, I mean, if you have to understand the whole needle, the thread's gonna go in the groove and down, okay, down. So to do that, you need to, because I'm not cutting my yarn, I'm gonna go up this way, up, and then putting the tail in the slit, okay? If I went this way, I would have no place to put it. So go up the eye. You can put it in the slit if you want, okay? There's an easier way in just a second. So then now, once it's in this area, I need to go through the eye of the needle, all right? You can see the eye. You don't go backwards, go down into the eye. So with this, normally the eye's big enough that you can just squeeze this through and then just grab it on this side. So what I have is, when I'm holding on to this and I pull, you can see it's almost like flossing. You want your yarn to sink down into this little trough or this canal. This is actually protecting your yarn from being frayed as you punch up and down, okay? It still releases it, but it protects the sides of it. So you're gonna have a tail coming out the eye of the needle, the back side comes down, and it's actually in this one, all right? So you hold it like this. You don't wanna turn it upside down. You wanna turn it to where the crack or the slit is basically in between your two fingers, like this, all right? So to start, I always start right here on the edge. Now, we're gonna use this line as a guide, all right? In punching, you have to punch in a hole, okay? So my black line is here, so I'm gonna use the hole toward the inside of my design. So what I'm doing is I'm gonna go straight down. Notice the fabric and the end of this piece touch. When I bring it back up, which seems to be easy, you can bring it up too much and now you have all this loopy stuff here. Can't do that. You have to go down, and as you come up, see how this tip of the needle is never leaving the fabric? It goes to the next hole in line and goes down, comes up, goes to the next hole, goes down, next hole, next hole. One important factor is this thread yarn that's going into the eye hook up here, you're not pulling on it, all right? It has to be free. Some people will take this, put it on your actual design. If you're holding this and punch, it's not feeding into the fabric. Then your loops will be different heights. So when I'm going down, I'm lifting it up, going down. So what I'm gonna do real quick, and I've been doing this a while so I can punch a little bit faster. Most of the time it's eye-hand coordination where somebody's trying to visually see, okay, I need to go in, and then I'm coming back up. I am doing this somewhat at an angle, okay? So it's just in, pull it up, touch down. I'm gonna actually go all the way to here, and then I'm gonna fill in this other side. And I wanna show you, there's a little change in the holes when I do this. Down all the way, touch, gently pull it up, and then punch back in. Punch needle. Notice I haven't flipped it over, okay? If you flip it over and you start seeing, you can see that there's little loops. These are all the same height. That's what I mean about pile. It's almost like shag carpet. These are all the same. And the reason being is that when I come up, I went straight down. If I only went to here, it wouldn't be the same. I have to do the same motion every time. The same motion. It's very redundant, but very relaxing, because if you do it correctly, your piles turn out they just are really nice. So, all right, so I'm getting to the end here. I'm going to go down. Now, I need to go and turn, instead of turning my needle sometimes, what I'm going to do is just take my hoop and I'm going to turn it around. This is where it's going to get a little bit different, all right? If I started here and I'm going to go over one row, I'm actually going to go over another row. So I've actually got 2 rows. So in between, and I want to use something to point to it. So actually I have 1 row here, and then I have 1 row here. So I'm getting ready to punch in this hole here. So I've got 2 lines in between each punched row. And there's a reason why, and I want to tell you that in just a minute. So you can see that now I'm going into this one. I basically skipped a hole, which in that case has 2 of the lines. Now, there's going to be another slight change after I do this row, okay? I also want to illustrate here, and I'm going to show you this. If you look right here, and this is why I skipped these rows. In these sections that have not been punched, there's actually a visible hole. You can see them. But right here, it looks very closed in. And what's happening is this type of yarn, the thickness of it, is basically squeezing together. If I had taken this one and punched here, they would have been too tight. And it would have been struggling to try to make this row happen. It's why I've skipped a row, okay? So in that case, you're going to start to see these closed up, all right? So make sure your yarn is actually coming out, that it's free from the ball, all right? That's important. All right, so now I'm going to go and punch. To reiterate, while I'm punching, I'm just going to say some of the same things. My slit in the needle, this one, is facing up in between my fingers, all right? It has the freedom right here. This is free to feed out. That's important. And as I'm going through here, and when I get up to this top, I'm going to stop. I'm going to swivel this back around, and I'm going to show you another trick. But I am pretty much going in every hole right now. For the first 2 rows, I'm really making a strong edge is what I'm doing by going in every single hole for the first 2 lines. When I get here to the top, I'm going to show you just another little trick, and it does make it go a little bit quicker. But being consistent is the main thing. All right, so I'm up here, I'm turning. Once again, do I have enough coming out? And so I am going to skip, do 1 hole. Got to find him because it's tight now. And then I'm going to move over to this one. Notice I've left 2 lines again. To reiterate, 2 of the white lines here, and I've left 2. You can see they're already closed in. There's barely a hole right here. There's no way I could have punched in that one. So to make things go a little bit quicker, I've noticed after I did these 2, that instead of going in every hole, okay, I'll skip a hole, skip it, jump over, skip, and then I'll probably do single hole, single hole, single hole, single hole, maybe skip. And it was kind of like in between, like the fifth one I could skip. So now I'm doing single, single, single. That's number 4. And then I'm going to skip over those. And this actually, you can feel how tight it gets. Usually when you start, it's not so bad, but once some of this is filled in and you're in the center, you're going to really feel how things are tightening up. This actually keeps everything from, that's 3 singles, 4 singles, 5, skip. Just try to be consistent with it. I'm going to turn this over here in a minute. I'm going to show you where I've skipped. You're never going to see it. It's amazing how the yarn just loops on top of each other. All right, so I'm going to the edge here. Remember, I'm going to go in one hole. And I'm jumping over. So there's jump to here. Nope, I messed up. So here, I thought I had hit this one right here, and I hit this one. And I noticed now there's 3 of these warp threads that are in between, and I only want 2. So in that case, I had to take it out. So when I take this out, I have what I call just a glob of yarn. There's 2 ways to correct it. My main one is just to pull this, to pull the slack out from back here where that eye hook is. You're gently pulling. If you pull too hard, guess what happens? See, all this is coming out, okay? If that happens, you want to pull it till there's pretty much, well, no slack right here, and that the needle can go back in. So since I pulled it out, I'm going to start back. I'm going to go down, down. Let me get one more here, and then I'm turning the corner. I'm going to go 1, and that's going to be it. So when I'm coming back this way, you can see I want 2 threads in between. All right, now I'm going to say, for example, I'm tired and I don't want to do any more. Don't leave this attached, okay? Because if you do, it'll end up pulling out. So if you want to think, okay, I need to quit, I've done enough. When I get ready to do the next hole, I'm going to stop. I tend to take my finger, put it right here on the end, and then I just pull this up a little bit like this. This is just exactly what I had a few minutes ago. Now instead, I'm going to take a pair of scissors, okay, and I'm just going to snip. There's no knot tying, there's no overlapping, there's nothing. You're just going to leave a tail here. When I get ready to start again, I'm going to start right here, right where I left off. I don't need to tie it to this. The thread right here that I started with, it's a tail. I can take this, trim it. It is better to keep things nice and tidy because if you grab this one, you're going to start pulling it out. So to keep it nice and tidy. Now, this line, I skipped some. These I did not. So I want to show you on the other side what these 3 lines look like, okay? To allow us to see this, leave this on for your case. But for video purposes, I'm going to take this off just so that you can actually get a better view of what's going on the good side, okay? So I've just taken that off. And in this one, this is the legs. So the small hoop comes off. These unscrew out or just pop out. Now, I'm going to flip it over just to reiterate. This line, the edge, and this one, I skipped 2 of the white warps or this stuff in between. And the same thing I did here. In these 2, I went in every hole. This one, I did like single hole, single hole, single hole, single hole, skip 2. All right, so this one actually has some skipped places. But when you look at it, you can't see that. It looks just as full. The pile height is the same height, and you really can't tell. If I had punched in every hole, they would have been so pressed together that they wouldn't have movement. So this actually gives that. Now, I'm going to show, this is the work in progress one here. If I took my sample that I'm actually using, now I had this folded over, but when you look at it here, I did these too close, and it was so hard to get those in. You see the curve? That's what's happening. It's curving because they're so tight. I'm going to have to now fix that, but when these are up, it's much easier. Skip in between. It's hard to see that that's two there, but as the more you do, the tighter they get. All right, so that's important to skip some. It'll also help you save yarn, but it'll also produce a much more flatter piece. So really, we're skipping. So in this one, I'm going to keep going all the way across till I get to here. And then once I'm done with this one, I'm going to do this corner here. And then I'm going to show you how you can alternate to do the stripes. So this is, focus on technique. That's what you need to focus on. Be consistent, be slow. Try it. Don't be fast at this, because if you have to take it out, we're already moving on to this one. So take this one slow, okay?